you need to have a sales methodology that everyone can align on, that is kind of speaking the same vernacular. He talked to me about BERT and LLMs then. And so he had the foresight and the sort of the vision. To the credit of everyone there, we all rallied behind, we want to build a $100 million business by January 2025. Now, T-Mobile is a Microsoft account, and, they, Copilot, like, they were getting like wooed by Satya to like Copilot's the new thing.
What are the biggest challenges at that point? And in that first year or even the year after that, as you look back, were there any pivotal decisions made that you think made a big difference?
AJ, so nice to have you back here again.
Yeah, thank you. And can I call you Dr. V?
100%, man, 100%.
Yeah.
That's my DJ name. No, just kidding. You'd be surprised the number of times people ask me, where does a doctor come from?
Yeah.
And then if I say I actually train as an MD, they're like, oh, so you're actually an MD.
Yeah.
So the default assumption is that I'm some fake,
It's legit. You're a doctor.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for making time. I'm super excited. I think the last time we really sat down and had a heart-to-heart was kind of like interesting because you were just joining Glean at that time.
Yes.
And it was an interesting conversation. I'm actually really looking forward to this. AJ, you've been at two incredible bellwether companies, right? Slack from the early days to scale, and then Glean as well.
3. I was at Facebook.
Okay, Facebook. There you go.
I didn't really have I was employee 500 there, but I didn't have as much impact.
Well.
Yeah.
I need to do more digging into your background.
No,
but
I'm just joking.
like, what was your? I mean, when you joined Glean, right? This whole AI thing was kind of like still not as widely known as it shortly was after you joined. What really got you interested in Glean?
Yeah. I mean, it does go back a little bit to Facebook and to Slack and to sort of, like, I've always had this fundamental desire to join companies that have products that I fundamentally believe are going to touch a very large number of people and have an outsized impact and work for people that I care a lot about, that I think have high conviction, high integrity. So I guess just to sort of fast forward, Slack used to, we used to internally talk about it as the acronym searchable log of all your company's knowledge.
Okay.
So early in, it was 2016, 2017, Stuart and the soon-to-be chief product officer, Noah Weiss, talked about search, learning, and intelligence. And they're like, we want to create a magical experience inside of Slack that is bringing AI to the forefront where, things can get done for you.
Interesting. So this idea was there.
This idea was, and it was not my idea, to Stuart Butterfield's credit and to Noah Weiss, who was leading search, learning, and intelligence, kind of built this. And so when, you fast forward from 2016 to 2022, when I started talking to Arvind late 2021, 2022, he described Glean not as what maybe a lot of other people did, which was an enterprise search. Like, a lot of people were just saying, oh, this is an enterprise search product. Arvind was describing it as a work assistant. He talked to me about BERT and LLMs then. And so he had the foresight and the sort of the vision to see what was going to happen in this space. I don't think he would say that he knew that there was going to be this ChatGPT and craze, but he knew that there was a world of bringing AI into the enterprise, and the way he knew how to do it right then and there with technology was search. But he had the vision of calling it a work assistant. So for me, back to the question, I saw the conviction that he had on thinking beyond just search, even in the way that he described it as a work assistant. So that's what got me interested and excited, and it comes back to, again, like working for really incredible products that are going to touch a lot of people.
It's interesting. This almost reminds me of the Steve Jobs. You can always connect the dots looking backwards, but never forwards.
Yeah.
You referencing, this idea first kind of getting planted in your head at Slack, and then, really come to life when Arvind sort of, talked about the technology and the product behind it.
Yeah.
So, Glean was started in 2019.
Yeah.
We're talking about end of 2021, 2022. Take us to that, first week at Glean. Like, what was it like? What was the product? What was the org like? What was the state of go-to-market?
Yeah.
How big was the team?
Yeah. So when I joined, there were about 100 people at the company.
100, okay.
And that was a lot for kind of the size of company we were at. We were just about to announce our Series C. We only had about 3 or 4 million in revenue.
Okay.
So
tiny.
$1 billion valuation, 3 or 4 million in revenue.
Well, feature of 2021, 22.
I remember getting a little bit mentorship from Carl Eschenbach during that period of 2022 when I joined, and he was like, "This was a crazy valuation." He was like joking with me about it.
Sure.
But back to your question, I was very fortunate because I think Arvind did the right things pre-2022 and leading up to 2021, which was sort of the breakthrough year, and where they basically went from 0 to just south of 3 million in revenue. And so what that meant was they had a really strong sort of initial sales leader / AE. This guy Josh Chang, who's did incredible.
Good friend of ours. Yep.
Yeah, and then Ryan Russell was another AE, and then I think the other leg to it was they had hired a really strong sort of almost forward deploy engineer-esque type person, this gentleman named Shiv, and I would say the three of them with a cast of other characters and not characters, just great people. There's a team on the go-to-market side that was about 15 people.
Okay.
Maybe, and that's including marketing too when I joined. And so you're looking at an organization that has got momentum, but it's also a lot of the systems and even just the pipe gen wasn't there, right? You had a lot of, there was 0 inbound leads, which is fine, but there was 0 sort of marketing generated leads. You had all of our sort of initial customers that got us to that 3 or 4 million prior to me joining were pretty much all free pilots.
Oh, interesting.
Giving free POCs. And so the things that we looked at doing as I came in was scaling quickly, but doing it thoughtfully and strategically. And I can get into more of the details of it, but I would say, to answer the question a little bit more, is it was such a heavy R&D organization,
yes.
Right? If you the numbers, 100 people, 15 of which were go to market, but there was a lot of energy and excitement about what we were doing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that Glean was such a young company, even in 2022, which seems like it was 3 years into or whatever, 2.5 years into their journey. What would you say about the state of product market fit? Because you're saying that there was these POCs, right? And maybe some were paid for, some were not. There was some revenue, but was there conviction in the product that this product is working, and now is the time to scale it up? Yeah.
So what I would say is, and I spoke a lot with Arvind about what happened in 2019, 2020, 2021. Even caught up with some of the early folks in preparation for this, and it was 2019 was they were in Kleiner Perkins' office,
sure,
right? They were stealth around building it. They had a vision of what to do. Arvind had sort of started this company while he was at Rubrik, and then Rubrik was like, "Hey, Arvind, you gotta leave to start this thing." And so, what they focused on in that 2019 and 2020 was building a product that they could all use themselves. So it was okay, how can we talk to a lot of prospect, talk to a lot of our the people that we're connected to, and potential customers, to get feedback on what we're building, and not necessarily to get POCs going or anything like that, but it was really about, okay, how are we going to build a product that we ourselves, with sort of how we're using it, can see that it's at a point where we're ready to take it to the market. Then, 2021 was the year where things, started to take off. And I would say that, they had clearly reached this idea of like product market fit from how they were using it internally, how they then were starting to get POCs and customers and not customers, prospects to use it for free. And then it became, 2022, after they had gotten a couple big deals like Wayfair, Uber, Airbnb in 2021, and then a lot of mid-market companies, it was like, okay, 2022 is the year we're going to scale. And they actually set a very ambitious goal. They were like, okay, we hit roughly 3 million at the end of 2021. Let's try to get to 15 million by the end of 2022. And I had come in and it was May and we were at like 4.5 million. And I was like, okay.
Half the year is gone.
Yeah, yes.
How do I pull 10 million?
Yeah, so we can go into more of it.
Yeah.
But hopefully that answers.
Yeah, no, this is super helpful. And I guess what I'm taking away from this is, just backing up, like Glean is a technical product first, and they take much more capital and much more time to get built, right, before you can really put them in the hand of the customer. And so what really had happened was a bunch of R&D when you joined, but it was kind of still like a year-old product in the market, right?
It was, yeah.
What are the biggest challenges at that point? And in that first year, or even the year after that, as you look back, were there any pivotal decisions made that you think made a big difference?
And maybe I'll go back a little bit, because I did speak with some, the early team in preparation for this, and I think some of the key decisions that were made early after it was like to get from that 0 to 3 million was, we are not going to optimize for revenue right now. We are going to optimize for adoption and getting this in the hands of people. So the Uber POC and to try to get them to become a customer took 6 months.
Wow.
They were using it for free for 6 months. They kept on hammering us, and I wasn't there at the time, but they kept on hammering Glean. They hammered us a lot even after, but they were hammering us on all of these additional features. And Ryan Russell, who was the rep on it, was really kind of like the account executive in the early phase that I would say like had to navigate that sort of constant barrage of technical requests, changes, things, and being able to have like an AE in those early innings when you're getting that POC going, combined with what Shiv was, which was a sort of this forward deploy engineer, solution engineer, I would call him, but he was much more technical, enabled R&D to still focus on what it needed to, for stuff to kind of get filtered a little bit. And ultimately, Alan, who was the running product at the time, Alan Yu, had to make some tough decisions on, we're not going to build that, we are going to build this. And then some of them got escalated to Arvin. But I think I think the pivotal right decision that I would say happened in 2020 and 2021 was Arvin got going on GTM. He got a team in place, because I think a lot of founders can maybe think that they need to do founder-led, and they get confused on what that means, founder-led sales. Founder-led sales does not mean you as the seed or a founder are like the only person that's selling. You need to have a bit more of an experienced person that's got like 5 to 7, 8 years that can do a lot of things like the Josh Chang was. And then you got to have other folks in the mix that can execute and take some of the leads and things like that. And then I would say this trifecta of having someone like that, the Shiv, the technical person, that trifecta is really important, I would say, in that 0 to 3 million. And then I can go into like the pivotal decisions I made as I got there when we were starting to scale.
Talk to us a little bit about this trifecta, right? I mean, you see a lot of other orgs get built in the early days. Can you maybe compare what other variations of this sort of 3-person model you see, especially in that 0 to a few million in ARR, and what have you seen be effective? Mm-hmm. Maybe if you could share an example or two, or if there are examples that you think have shown that something does not work.
Yeah, to some extent, I would say even at Slack. So if you go, I joined Slack at 6 million in revenue. It was about 50 people. So different, Slack was not as heavy R&D.
Sure. It was a gaming company, man. Come on.
It became heavier on R&D.
Sure.
But for that 0 to getting to that a couple million, there was a gentleman who was almost analogous to this like Josh Chang person, James Sherrod, who kind of played a marketing role, kind of played a sales role, and then he also had a very technical counterpart that she probably wouldn't be upset if I, like Ali Rail, who ended up becoming like, running all of support and then ran a lot of product at Slack. James and her were kind of this like nice duo, that almost, and then you had like another kind of like account manager-esque person that probably was like that trifecta that I'm talking about that worked well, which was like they could deal with the technical challenges that were coming from customers. They could manage a little bit of the comms, but then Stuart was also front and center talking about the vision with Walmart Labs, with some of these early Slack customers that got to like that product market fit. Now it was different because it wasn't a outbound sales motion. It was there was a product led piece to it. Sure. But when Stuart was trying to get going on the thing, like they did outreach to say, hey, we're shutting down the game. We want to get going with a beta group of people. So they were very thoughtful and selective. And I think having that James and Ali combo enabled the company to like have a fast feedback loop. Mm-hmm. Now I'd say examples of where I don't see it working, the trifecta. There's this one company I'm advising right now that really just has one head of sales. And I think it's a miss to not have a couple more people in the mix on the GTM side that can take a little bit of the load off of the CEO and this leader, and even the co-founder that's getting involved. And yeah, there's like a head of sales. There's a little bit of a I think they have like a little bit of a kind of forward deploy engineer, but they almost need another person in there to kind of balance out, okay, what's working and what's not.
It's like more product.
Yeah. But I'm still sort of like in this thesis of applying what I learned from Glean and from Slack and trying to bring it to to bring it to other companies.
What's most striking about what you just shared is that, Slack and Glean are two very different products. One's, kind of very different go-to-market, right? Very consumer product, prosumer product versus, very enterprise, I would say sort of elegant design and what have you. Not to say Glean does not, but it's kind of a technical product first. Yeah. Sold into deep enterprise versus sold, let's say to smaller teams. And it's interesting that you felt that sort of the same trifecta model worked in both places. So I think it's kind of, that part of it is most striking and counterintuitive to me.
Yeah, because I think it's, regardless of the sort of like the exact motion you have or who you're selling to, you need to have a sort of really strong feedback cycle that goes from what's happening in the field back into R&D that helps to speed up and improve cycles. And I think that I remember joining Slack and seeing like all of these notes from James Sherritt on the feedback from customers, what they were saying, what and how that got put into the product. And Ali Rail was looking at every technical ticket that was coming in and going back and going to the engineers and be like, we need to improve the product. With Glean, it was, you know, Josh, Shiv, Ryan, a bunch of other like really great people that were like constantly on the front line of those pilots and POCs and bringing in engineers, bringing in people. So it was like a little bit more of a heavy touch that I think made a difference in being able to move faster.
When should and we'll go back to Glean in a second, when should a founder actually start thinking about putting this trifecta together? When do you, like if you think about the journey between, let's call it 0 to pre-seed seed, just kind of like just getting stuff together, seed to Series A, which is kind of, you know, the zone of we have some product market fit, maybe not, and then Series A and beyond. And let's say, you know, companies are maybe at that stage, at Series A, maybe like $500,000 of revenue or maybe even lower. Like just at what stage, you know, whether it's qualitatively or quantitatively, do you feel like, you know, there's a moment when you think the founders start thinking about this? I think you referred to this as founder-led sales, but which does not only mean founders selling, but creating this team.
It's a hard question to answer because I think it depends on kind of the complexity of the product, how applicable it is to, you know, the market that you're trying to sell to. But my view is once you get signal from more than 10 prospects that they're willing to go on a POC journey with you, even just that verbal, like more than 10 that are like willing to go on a POC journey, at that point, you should hire the trifecta.
Interesting.
And so that, you know, I was reflecting on this in my conversations with some folks prepping for this. I actually think Arvind could have hired that trifecta earlier. He only had Josh for about a year. And that was hard for not only Josh, but it was hard for, I think, Arvind to sort of like, you know, get any other signal because it was just one voice. Like if he had hired, you know, again,
Shiv
or Ryan and some of these other AEs that came after, look, hindsight's 2020. So like Arvind, you built a great company. Like there's an element to like, I think if you're a founder that you're like, and every founder's got conviction, but once you sort of get external validation from at least 10 people that are willing to go on a journey with you, it's in your best interest just to ramp up, to even manage those POCs, to, you know, manage the follow-up, manage some of those conversations, and to take a little bit of the load off of the actual engineers in your company.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I'll come back to this in a moment. So now we're back at Glean. Your goal is to go from, you know, whatever, 3 million to 15 million. You're in May.
Yeah.
You know,
First off, I reset. Arvind said to me very nicely, because it was also during the tech Armageddon, where there were all the layoffs happening, and despite having,
I remember everyone kind of like, you know, sort of CFOs getting involved in all procurement and people talking about, do we really need this?
Yes. So, you know, and, you know, I came in and the team had emptied the tank in Q4 and Q1, meaning
there's no
the pipe coverage going into Q2. The pipe coverage, for folks that don't know, is just relative to the goal you have, how much pipeline do you have, and it's just, you know, pipeline divided by the goal. And I had 1.8x, which, you know, is absurd. And
absurdly good.
No, absurdly bad.
You said 8x?
No, 1.8x. 1.8x.
Yes.
1.8x. So from
Sure.
So we had this hill to climb. We hit 66% of the number in my first quarter. I was like, what did I do? And so Arvind was like, hey, let's reset a little bit. So we moved the number from 14.5 to 11.5. And then what I did, the decision I did then, which I did, you know, I think there was a little bit of like ages coming in and moving fast, but I decided very quickly to segment the team. And I had a team that was enterprise and a team that was SMB and, you know, just SMB. And I said, okay, 2,000 employees and above, we're moving these AEs that we have. We had, I think, 5 at the time into enterprise. And we're saying, stop, like all of the sort of like, you know, all of the venture capital deals that we're getting in the SMB segment are just going to start to decline. And the only way we can hedge to make sure that this business stays on track is win enterprises who are going to be less impacted by the tech Armageddon, because they're not, you know, they're just, they've got more stability. And so at that point we pushed up market, and I think it was the best decision we made, because we started to build the pipeline for next year. Because as anyone that's sold into the enterprise, it takes a long time. The sales cycles are long, and we, you know, even with that, we were still able to close we closed our first $2 million deals by the end of that year.
Wow.
We had our first $1 million deal in Uber.
I remember that.
Yeah, and then our second $1 million deal, which was a net new, zero.
Interesting.
Which
like a $2 million land.
Well, 0 to 1.
Okay.
With T-Mobile.
T-Mobile. Yeah, I remember.
And that was you know, ended up being a roughly 5-month cycle, but that the sort of decision across the company to say, hey, we're going to move up market. That is how we're going to protect our base and protect against the tech Armageddon, was the decision. Now, that was the sort of sales go-to-market strategy decision. I think there were a lot of other decisions that I played a role in that helped to shape where Glean is today. I think one was vision setting. So I, you know, sat down with my GTM org, everyone, marketing people that didn't report to me, but anyone that touched GTM, and I said, we're going to build a joint vision. We're going to, what do we want this business to look like 2 or 3 years from
And this
now?
is still happening in 22.
This is 22.
Wow.
I brought everyone together for an offsite. I borrowed from like the Salesforce V2 mom, you know, like what is the vision? What are our values? And then what are some of the objectives and things we need to do? And we had an offsite, we put it on a whiteboard, we came up with setting our values, setting our vision. And to the credit of everyone there, we all rallied behind, we want to build a $100 million business by January 2025. Right, no joke. And that was just one of those things when you bring a team together and you talk about values, you talk about what do we want this to be. A lot of it was like career growth for people. A lot of it was that they wanted to like work incredibly hard, but learn and grow and achieve these outcomes. That set a really nice foundation within the GTM org that we then shared with the company. And then I think that one of the rallying things we did, and at the time Arvind didn't love that I was doing it, was we had, you know, I heard about a field game day that they had done the year prior that wasn't really a tradition, and then a gentleman who ran support, Greg, and I teamed together and said, hey, we're gonna unite the company and we're gonna have a Glean field game day.
Okay.
And we brought everyone to a park, and we like had R&D and GTM all mixed together, and we were kind of uniting the teams. And this was right after we had shared the $100 million vision. And so those were some of the things that I think in that year of 2022, it felt like strategically what I was trying to do was direct the business into the enterprise and unite R&D and GTM so that it felt like there was a really tight feedback loop between the two.
That's very interesting. So when you frame it like that, sort of just bringing R&D and GTM together, and then everybody inside GTM sort of, you know, also together, whether they reported into you or not, but almost that as a crucial milestone to hit before you really sort of set yourself up for.
Because I think you also, it's just the same thing happened at Slack that I kind of borrowed as well. Like Stuart hired this agent, hired these outside kind of organizational designers, not designers, like coaches.
Consultants, coaches, yeah.
It was actually funny. My wife had worked with them as well at Coursera.
Interesting.
And they like, hey, they you kind of set the DNA of the company. You set like the culture, you set what you want. And I think a lot of pivotal things happened in 2022 where we, both across GTM and R&D, kind of like defined the culture and the company. And it wasn't easy because you're building, you were also setting these ambitious targets. You were having, we didn't end up hitting, I moved the number from 14 million to 11.5 and we didn't hit it, we hit 10.5, but we had a massive milestone win that set the tone for the year because we closed T-Mobile. And that closed at the end of the year.
I'm sure you were on the edge of your seat when.
Oh, I mean the deal came in at like 10 p.m. on the end of the year for 2022.
No way.
Oh,
this is the last week of December.
Last week of January. Because
January. Okay.
We're off cycle by that. But it was. I remember we did it, but we did an entire picture with like Arvin was in it. Tony, I think, and we did a selfie and sent it to T-Mobile, and we just had a lot of excitement too, even though it was hard.
It almost even when I'm talking to you, and even over the years that I've seen you operate, I also, have picked on this your unique ability to almost absorb a lot of pressure and kind of simplify things. I think, there are lots of ways of extracting performance or creating a high performance team. But my observation on our conversations is, a whole lot could be going down in the business, right? Or there's a whole lot of stuff that's maybe going on in your head, but you almost have this sense of calm. So you're the proverbial duck.
Yeah,
kind of like.
I think I don't know that people at Glean would say that I'm calm. I think that anyone that I've worked with knows that I bring kind of a positive energy that is ambitious and that's driven on that we can achieve. Mm-hmm. And I think that does give people comfort and calm and but at the same time it's I move fast,
Sure.
I kind of make changes. I remember early in 2022 I was like, Arvin, I'm promoting this guy Ryan Russell to a manager. And he wanted to talk about it. I was like, oh, it's already done. We're not, I decided quickly to let go of all of our SDRs and BDRs because they were remote. And I required our head of SDR that was in Austin at the time to relocate to the Bay Area and be in the office, 3 days a week, which at the time was kind of controversial. Now everyone's like, yeah, 5 days a week, but and Arvin was he was supportive of that, but the team was like, AJ, this is moving.
This is a new guy coming in.
Yeah, moving quick, and I think organized chaos with positive energy is what I brought.
What was 2023 like? So you guys went from maybe just talk about the next couple of years, just set context because you guys scaled up pretty fast after that.
Yeah, so we hit 10.5 and then it was a really interesting planning session going into 2023. I had this ambition to bring the company, I vividly remember it, to 30 million, maybe even 35 million. And I remember speaking with some board members, and they're like, and this was before we had launched any AI, true AI agent product. We hadn't, it was all Glean was at the time was search. It was, we were able to get the T-Mobile deal at a decent price because I used the Slack pricing a little bit to anchor. So, within reason, not breaking any confidentiality clauses. But I then, I remember going into 2023 where it was we kind of were a little bit worried because we ramped quickly with AEs end of 2022.
But you still got only half a year to really ramp them up and fill in the pipe.
And participation rates
were low.
Now pipeline was pretty good.
Exiting the year.
But we kind of went into Q1 and Q2 and we're like, let's maybe pull back on AE hiring, and let's try to get this cohort of AEs to see where they do, how they do, before we ramp up more.
Sure.
And in retrospect, I think it was a mistake. I think we should have given the market opportunity. Hindsight's 2020. We should have kept the pedal to the metal on hiring. We shouldn't have taken our foot off the gas, and we should have gone for a more ambitious target. Because what happened in the planning session was we ended up dialing back the number after talking to the board, and Arvind and I remember having like a heart to heart. I was really excited for a bigger number, and he was, kind of like, maybe we should be more realistic. And then it flipped. Where like, so we ended up having a lower number than 30 million. I think it was like 26. And but long story short, like we started to have like a really strong, starting in Q2, momentum just hit. We closed a large deal with Koch Industries, which is like, for me, it was a canary in the coal mine of, we can win big Microsoft accounts.
Yeah.
Now T-Mobile is a Microsoft account, and they, Copilot, like they were getting like wooed by Satya to like, like Copilot's the new thing, but they were really a more innovative company with technology. They decided to buy Slack. They decided to sort of make, they're sort of just known as a more innovative company. Whereas Koch Industries, it's the largest privately held company in the United States.
And it's a black box.
And by the way, Koch Industries, not Coca-Cola.
Yeah. Is the KOC.
Yeah, this is like a company that has like like oil and gas and like it has like 25. So when we closed that deal, which Nini Spalding did, and worked closely with her on, like we at that point were like, okay, like let's put the pedal to the metal. Let's not over index on rep participation. Now we did ramp up on, we did realize like we need to hire more on enablement. Mm-hmm. And that's one investment I would say, to a founder that gets to sort of that exit velocity, getting into B and C's, you should look at pushing your GTM leaders to invest more in enablement. Mm-hmm. And I think especially technology-driven enablement. There's a CRO that's the CRO of owner.com. I think Kyle Norton's his name. Mm-hmm. He's like really, I'm aligned with him. Like he's very front and center on investing in enablement early, and then building out sort of the playbooks for how AEs can sell. I think we did a good job. I think we could always do a better job, and partially.
And what is the scale of AEs at this time when you sort of
This is when you had when we had 20.
So you started at 5. You had 20, let's say early 2023.
Yeah.
And you exited the year with. At
the end of 2023, we had about 75.
Wow.
Maybe a little less. Maybe 65.
And how many of them would have been like fully ramped up?
Very few.
Like half.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, let me. The year that we truly ramped our AE hiring was 2024. So if we let me just read. So 20.
Sure.
20,
Rework the math.
2023, we only got to about like 35.
Okay.
So we did. This is my point that I was saying around Q1.
You
slowed.
held back.
Held back, and then I remember, Deboisha, who was like running product, had come back to Glean, and he became like Arvind's like sort of chief of staff, but like doing a lot to help bridge between product and GTM. Him and I were like, we gotta ramp hiring. And we need to ramp not only hiring of AEs, but solution engineers. Mm-hmm. People that were like Shiv, that could kind of help
forward deployed,
help be a little bit forward deploy, help just sort of on the technical POCs. We made a couple internal promotions to people that were in support into the SE function that were like great decisions. And then we exited 2023 with a ton of pipeline, 38 million. We hit 38 million on a 26 goal.
Wow.
We crushed it.
Yeah.
You know, but the problem is I think we could have been, had more AEs going into that year, because we then needed to climb the mountain to go from 38 to 100.
Right.
And one of the mistakes I would say I made going into like 2024 was I spiffed in Q1 on pipe gen, which you should you shouldn't do. Now, I mean, maybe I don't know. I would love to maybe like debrief on this with like Naboisha and some of the board now, because we actually hit 100 million. Yeah. So maybe my decision was right. But I remember talking to David Schneider, who's an investor and on the board, and he's like, "Don't do that." And it makes sense. Like you shouldn't. Like people can, if you spiff, what that means for folks is like you're giving an incentive for people to just get a bonus if they create pipeline. Now that can create a lot of
fun, basically.
Like stuff in the pipeline that's not real.
Yeah.
So I would say that was a mistake.
But I'm sure you would have made a logical decision. So like, what was the imperative that caused you to do that?
So the imperative was like when Naboisha and I looked at the numbers going into 2024, and we said, we got to hit 100 million. We started thinking about the coverage ratio of like, if we want to hit 100 million, that delta is, we basically needed 62 million. So
of which how much was upsell versus new?
Yeah, most of it is new.
New, okay. So you need 3 times that at least?
At least.
In terms of coverage?
Yes, and that's why we kind of went, did something which was like, okay, we're gonna put a big incentive on pipe gen. I started to like track net new meetings in a much more granular way. Started to put a lot more leaderboards in front of people, and I think the thing that probably solidified us getting to the 100 million was like the rallying that we did around our GKOs. So we had twice a year Glean kickoffs where we brought R&D and GTM.
I remember that is a big thing for you every year.
Yeah, and most companies call them SCOs, sales kickoffs. I was very
this is not sales, it's Glean.
This is Glean. Everyone's like, hands are stacking. We have a goal. We're trying to get to 100 million. And this is like, we're putting the cards on the table of like, we're all in this together. And I think that was one of those like rallying moments that got people fired up. I think we then did, we had Arvind pay up on
on a bet?
On a bet, essentially a bet where we prior to me joining, he had promised to do an offsite in Tahoe.
Okay.
And this was like 2022. And finally, I remember Takir, who's one of the most senior engineers there. He was at a Q&A, and he's asked, Arvind, when are we gonna? This is 2024. He's like, when are we gonna do our offsite? And I used that as I remember talking with Eddie, who's Eddie is one of like the founding sort of members of the engineering team. And we cornered Arvind and we got him to commit to doing it in Tahoe.
Wow.
And so I think those some of those moments were like cultural iconic moments that like rallied people. And then I think we made some really great hiring decisions at the next management level. We brought in some really great talent from Snowflake that were kind of leaders that could kind of build more of a kind of a machine and emotion. We invested heavily in 2023 and 2024 in value selling framework. Now, Mark Wendling, who runs the go-to-market now, ended up shifting to command of the message, but a lot of the foundation of...
And maybe you want to talk about what are the two different models for people who are less familiar.
So when you get to an organization size of you have more than, I mean, I think it's good to start even earlier, but if you get more than 30, 40 AEs, you need to have a sales methodology that everyone can align on that is kind of speaking the same vernacular. And so value selling is one of those. There's another one, that's kind of command of the message. They're all, honestly, all of them, and I remember talking to Schneider about this, he's like, it almost doesn't matter which one you choose, it's just, are you committed to doing it? And I think that in some ways, like how we executed in that 2023 and 2024 was a derivative of getting the AEs to be thinking about value selling in a different way, like building ROI into their deals. For example, we were able to build ROI into getting T-Mobile to go from 1 million to a much larger number by this sort of framework of what value is Glean delivering from a customer support cost savings perspective.
Customer support cost savings.
That's what we focus on because we were able to sort of work with them and say what is the sort of decrease in talk time. Like how can we decrease your call resolution time by a certain number?
And this is internal ITSM or is this?
This is customers calling. Glean, like after working with T-Mobile, was able to improve the resolution time, like looking at A/B metrics and everything by, I think it was like something like 20%.
Wow.
And that's
clear. That's
tens of millions of dollars, which then can become the business case for why
expansion.
A CFO should spend
much more.
And that thinking is what we worked with a company called Visualize in 2023 and 2024 to sort of like
hone in on that.
Infuse the AEs.
Okay.
And it wasn't just AEs, it was solution engineers, it was the customer success organization, it was the management team. We actually brought Arvin, Tony, who's one of the co-founders, Vish, and the person that was running product at the time to actually learn on what this methodology meant because we wanted everyone to like
be
aligned. Now, I think things got like probably crazy as we scaled in 23 and 2024. And, in some respects, I do think like moving to the command of the message that we ultimately moved to helped to simplify things even more. But the value selling piece of building a business case is part of command of the message. So anyway, but I think that's, now the organization is well over 100 AEs. It's probably nearing 200 AEs at this point. I mean, when I left, the GTM org was close to 400 people.
Wow.
And I joined
from the first 10, 15 to 400.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Maybe just hitting on one thing that you mentioned, this value selling or command of the message. When you look at the world of sort of AI today, one of the big challenges is how do you really stand out, right? I mean, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. Look at pick your tool for like customer support, pick your tool for like sales enablement, what have you.
Yeah.
There's so much fatigue and there's so much, let's call it confusion, not only for investors, but actually also for buyers.
Yeah.
Right? For what am I buying? Why am I buying it? How do I compare these different products? Which I think is a unique challenge in this environment where there's been a big technology shift and everybody's building. What would be your advice or what would be your even framework for thinking about how to communicate the value of your product? How to segment customers maybe?
Yeah.
How to isolate signal from noise?
And I think there's a couple things in there. If you have a product, if you're a founder building a product, you have to deal with this challenge where there's so many other products that are that are being sold into T-Mobile, all these companies. And so I think you need to first and foremost like have a very clear and distinct value proposition that's very basic, that's clear, that is, you know, you can get across in the moment of 2 minutes. Now, after you sort of get that message across, like you need to be able to like work with someone at that prospect to build a business case to ultimately justify it to the CFO. Because now everyone is going to say that they provide like 2x ROI, 3x ROI. I think the way that I would encourage people to sort of do the selling to get to that and to break through is through reference selling, through having really good case studies, but more important is reference selling. One of the key ways that we were able to close Coke Industries was telling them they could talk to Jeff Belknap at LinkedIn, who was the CISO of LinkedIn. One of the ways we were able to sell, you know, DoorDash, which recently became a Glean customer, was like, they didn't do a long POC. They actually did like a 5-day technical POC, you know, but what they did was like, they worked in parallel with the AE to talk to references and build a business case that was specific to the product. Now, I don't know that I'm exactly answering the question when it comes to like.
I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful. Maybe the other dimension of my question that we haven't yet touched on was like, how do you stand out, right? Because there's so much confusion.
I think the way you stand out is like so prior to me joining Glean, I went and randomly cold called into
a bunch of customers or
customers. Like, and didn't cold call. I knew people at Airbnb and Uber. I got to this woman at Airbnb and I said, why? Why did you buy Glean? And I said, would you ever pay over $1 million for this product? I think it's a great question, by the way, to ask if you're thinking about joining a company and you get to a company. But I spoke with her, and the thing that she said that was like breaking through, because at the time, there was a lot of competition in search. There was Coveo, there's Google Cloud Search, there was Microsoft, she said the thing.
Neeva, Magnolia, Elastic, I mean, yes.
She said the thing that kind of came through with Glean that is the white glove service. So the way that Glean was really thinking about meeting the needs of Airbnb and listening to their product feedback, listening to
back to that trifecta.
Yeah, no, I really think that's why I would argue, you know, you want to move fast on getting the trifecta, because the AI business is a little bit of a services business. And what I mean by that is like, yeah, you can have a great product, but it's how you get that product to get adopted that is solving a specific business problem. Because, you know, the way you can use these AI tools there's multiple ways. And how you work with, you know, how that prospect or customer works with you and your team and your trifecta to deploy it, to get to usage, I think is really important. The other thing I don't know that I.
It's almost like, so just to sort of paraphrase what you heard, almost getting that specific message out of the customer, pulling it out of the customer.
Yeah, because like you want to be in this process of selling, especially to the enterprise, but I think this is relevant to anyone you're selling to. You know, assuming there's, you know, it's not like a very commoditized product, there's going to be something that the prospect says that you learn in discovery.
Yes. That you weren't thinking about.
That you weren't thinking about, or that they just said it in a different way. Like, for example, T-Mobile never said to us that they have a search problem.
Sure.
They said to us, we have a productivity issue in our call centers. We have a knowledge management problem where our care representatives are struggling to meet the needs of our customers when they're on calls because it's really hard for them to navigate our systems, right? Like, that's a different way of saying search.
Yeah.
It's a different way of saying a knowledge management problem, but so we reframed all the conversations with them, which was, how are we going to improve customer experience? How are we going to improve customer care for you? And I think that being able to have that white glove tailored approach is important.
So it's almost like you had different messages for different kind of like large enterprise accounts based on whatever their...
As you mature as an organization, you'll have we at Glean now sell to very specific lines of business. We have a certain talk track for security teams. We have a certain talk track for customer care, for sales teams, for IT, so you can do the line of business selling. And we did this really well at Slack. I remember we really started, and I think Bob Fratty gets, I think, a lot of the credit. We really started to communicate the value of our product to lines of business that allowed us to get better ticket sizes and better ROI. Because, just think about it from your own experience. Like, who has potentially more cachet to push the CEO or senior executive team to do something? Is it the CIO, or is it the chief sales officer? Or is it the person in customer care that has a $50 million line item of a cost that they're getting from their CFO? You need to bring that cost down, right? So I think there's ways that we started to evolve the messaging, but I think the best organizations are really listening to customers in that early phase and then tailoring to them. And then you can systematize it as you get into this. I would say once you get into the 50 million and above revenue, then you can really systematize how to speak to it. Now, there might be other small businesses that you could tailor it more for different lines of business, but that's how I think about it.
I know we have to wrap up, and
Cool.
we've chatted a bunch. I'm going to ask you a few questions that are
Rapid fire,
popcorn, whatever you might call it. How do you set quotas and territories? Is there a kind of a shorthand for that?
The shorthand for it is in general, you want to be 4 to 6x the OTE of what you're paying in AE. So it's the ROI. You want a 4 to 6x ROI.
And what does that look like typically in an enterprise?
So it's if your average OTE is anywhere from 250 to 300, you're looking at a 1.5 million quota. And I think that can be both new business, a combo of new business and upsell. Now, I think, how do you set quotas? I think the thing with quotas is you want it to be, you want to have equitability. So the thing with an AE team is, now every AE is going to always complain they don't have a fair territory.
Sure.
I was one of those. I think what you want to do is create territories that map to the unique skill sets of that individual. So if you're hiring a lot of people that are in the East Coast, that are in New York, let's build a book of business
in New York.
In New York.
Yeah.
If you're hiring senior strategic sellers who have primarily sold to Fortune 100s, let's make sure that they have
enough pipe to.
Or no, that their accounts are Fortune 100s, and then it becomes dividing up the pie, and I think there's this. It gets more complicated as you get a healthy run rate business because you want to have a mix of install versus net new, especially if you have a model like I believe in, which is AEs should own both pre and post sales in terms of they own
the quota. Yeah.
They own the quota for upsell.
For upsell as well.
Yeah.
Versus success.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I think there's a way for success to own some of that, but have it be more metrics driven usage driven.
Interesting. How do you think about incentives and participation rates? Healthy incentives, like what's your philosophy for it?
So yeah, I think participation rates
70%?
No, I'm much lower. I actually think I think you want to be 50, like we were targeting 50 to 60%.
Wow.
We were okay. We had participation rates lower than that. As we were building the business, we had a very kind of feast or famine in the early days. Now what we did to sort of incentivize people to keep people building pipeline, thinking about how to get there was creating spiffs. Like, I paid out in 2024 almost, I think it was like almost $750,000 in spiffs, because I wanted to incentivize net new meetings here, pipeline here in a certain way, which again, there's pros and cons to that. I wanted to incentivize someone for getting, the largest deal done, the largest enterprise deal. So I think they play a really strong role in keeping AEs like motivated, especially when participation rates can be little low.
Yeah, this trade-off between like the aggression of the milestone and the participation rates you're selling. Must-have tools in your sales stack.
Must have Gong,
Okay.
Glean. I mean that.
Yeah.
Salesforce. I've actually softened on.
Zoom info.
Oh, so Zoom info, yes, but I've softened on. I used to say Zoom, and I used to this is one where I give Arvind credit. I think Google Meet. I think it's becoming more of a commodity between those two. I'm not as
Sure.
I'm maybe alone in that, or not alone. I might be a minority in that, but I think that minority is growing around Zoom versus Google Meet. I think that the must-have that I would say we didn't have that was better enriching tools Zoom info we had, but I think there's
Clary or
there's more tools like Clay and some new age tools that we didn't end up deploying that can help with
just better
data and insights into what's going on. So anyway, that's the tech stack. I still think you need to have, for SDR teams, you still need to have an outreach, you still need to have sales navigator, you still need to have dialers, automated dialers like Orem. So those are some of them. I'll think if I'm missing any. I'll send you my list.
No, this is super helpful. Couple final questions. Who are some of the 0 to 1 or 1 to 10? I'll make it easy for you. Go-to-market leaders or people who've done it more than once that you admire the most.
I mean, there's a lot.
Rattle off a few names.
I mean, I feel like I'm impressed by what Josh did at Glean. I think he did a great job. I think 0 to 1. It's a rare. There's less so of these people that have gone to this 0 to 1. I think Kyle Parrish at Figma. He was very early there. Those are the two.
Those are a couple of that are coming up.
I'll think about more.
Next time I see Josh, I'm gonna grab him. If someone was writing a biography, and you wanted to sell a whole bunch of copies of it, what would you call it?
Tenacity.
Tenacity.
I mean, I think all my managers, leaders, coaches have always viewed me as someone that has tenacity. And I think tenacity can sometimes have a negative connotation, but I think tenacity is you are grounded. You have sort of your core tenets of not exactly, but there's the word actually has a grounding kind of the etymology
connotation.
Yeah, and I think that for me represents a lot.
It's almost like a grounded hustle.
Yes.
And not giving up.
Yes, I think that's right.
Awesome. Well, this has been a pleasure, AJ. I'm so glad you were able to make some
Yeah.
time before you travel, and thanks, Ashkan, for doing this.
Thank you.
For us and everybody else that makes this possible. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And Dr. V, I'm excited to partner more.
Thank
Figure
you.
out how we can help some of these startups that you're investing in.